Good evening and welcome to our session today. I'm Dr. Aditya Hande, and some of you may know me as your health coach. I'll be your moderator for this evening's discussion session. So today's event, we have Sharmila Rivero, an advocate for healthy eating and author of the award-winning family cookbook, Everyday Love, A Mother's Guide to Healthy Cooking for Kids. In addition to this, she is well recognized and as an expert in her domain, conducting workshops and online sessions for all ages on nutrition and healthy eating. She also actively contributes to the Hindu newspaper and Just for Women magazine as a columnist. Further, she holds a master's degree from Rutgers University and is the co-founder of two non-profit organizations, Appropriate Technology India and Devbhoomi Natural Products. Through her diverse experience over the past 25 years career, she has amassed an impressive body of knowledge spanning from agriculture, environment, practical nutrition, and organic food, and how these actually intersect with each other. She writes about going back to the basics of healthy cooking and eating, and also in different ways to eliminate stress when you need to plan for your cooking your meals. Her cookbooks and works feature a range of tasty, healthy, and easy to cook Indian and international recipes. And this have changed the mentality of people in way they help themselves in approach towards better healthy eating. On a personal note, I am very excited and looking forward for this session. We want this session to be interactive, so I asked all the attending participants to drop down your questions when and where you're required, and we will definitely have some time to take them at the end as a part of the question answer session. So you can drop your questions in the question answer window, which is in the link down, or you can see the chat box there, and that we will be taking at the end of the session. So without wasting much of the time and moving forward, I would like to hand over to the session to Sharmila. Please do the honors, Sharmila.
Thank you, Dr. Aditya, for that lovely introduction. Yeah. And many thanks to Bindu for inviting me to speak to you all today and for the opportunity to address you all. You know, for the last 2 years, we've been talking about is about COVID-19, about how to protect ourselves from a disease, how to boost our immunity. And as I reflected on the content of the talk that I'm giving you today, I feel it's still very, very relevant. I mean, a lot of us are just sick about talking about healthy eating and health. But one of the terms we learned during the COVID pandemic is the term comorbidities. And I think the essence of what I'm going to talk to you today is really how to prevent those comorbidities. I wrote this book and I said, you know, it's healthy eating for kids, mainly because I believe that we really need to catch them young. So it's very important, not only for us to be aware of what's good to eat, but also to train our kids and everybody in our networks. So that's the thing. So comorbidities, as we know, is basically lifestyle diseases like diabetes, heart attacks, obesity, asthma and things, which are all highly prevented through, firstly, through healthy eating, I think, besides stress. One thing we've learned is that really in the pandemic is that health is our greatest asset. And no one ingredient or supplement can boost our health. It is a combination of healthy eating and exercising and reduce stress. So what I'm going to be talking to you today is just a few changes that will help you. I know that you're already all involved on a journey of good health, and I'm going to give you some ideas that will hopefully stay with you to make your journey even easier. Some background myself, Aditya has already mentioned it, but I'm the author of this cookbook, which is called Everyday Love, A Mother's Guide to Healthy Cooking. And it has, it's a fully color cookbook with a range of 170 recipes for everything from Indian and international breakfasts like idli dosa plus muesli plus granola bars, lunch ideas, healthy treats, soups, how to make breads, dips and spreads, basically things that you can make at home rather than buying in a store. And I was a busy working mother. I was traveling a lot and I have 3 boys. I realized that, you know, I was so busy working and combining both these roles. as a mother and as a working professional, that I really neglected what I was feeding my kids, especially when they were young, what I was putting into their snack boxes. I would buy biscuits and chocolates and chips and things like that. And when my youngest was 5, he was getting sick all the time. And then I started to realize, to ponder why this was. And I realized he wasn't eating any fruits or any vegetables. And that was a wake-up call to me, because so I started to study nutrition to see what do I need to give my kids and family for them to be healthy. I started to then experiment in the kitchen of how do I make, a family, kid-friendly food, tasty and healthy. How do I give them fruits and vegetables in new and interesting ways? So basically, I decided to de-junk my kitchen and cook everything from scratch. And I realized, the reason we buy so much of ready-made food is, firstly, of course, we do it for, pleasure. It's easy, it's tasty, but mostly we do it for convenience, because we think it's too difficult to bake or too difficult to, cook from scratch. And that convenience actually comes at a cost, the cost of our health. So my cookbook is actually about going back to the basics of what our grandmothers and mothers ate, of homemade, of cooking from scratch, about conscious cooking and eating and green living, and about eating whole, real, minimally processed food. And the reason I started to give these talks, though I wrote a cookbook, is because, and I'm so passionate about sharing my story, is because the health benefits for my family were tremendous. All my 3 kids were asthmatics. They were on inhalers. I had nebulizers at home. And the one thing I did when I started to, cut the junk food, cut the processed food, the health of the entire family improved so dramatically. My pediatrician used to tell me, "Oh, you don't bring your kids to me anymore." And so that is why I, want to share what I did, the very simple few things that I did to hopefully help others in this journey. And so the outline of my...
Before moving on, there has already been talk about your books, one of our attendees. She has mentioned that she's fond of your book and it's very valuable.
Oh, thank you so much.
It needs to be, catered in everybody's kitchen. So probably, there has been a talk about your book. So yeah, definitely that has to be a award-winning book anyway. Yeah.
So there are the few steps that I'm going to talk to you about better healthy health and nutrition. And the first is to understand the basics of nutrition and what is good to eat. And that is really common sense. I think we all know about it. The second point is to understand what is in our junk and processed food. The third is to read labels on processed food, to learn to read those labels. Then to prep, stock, or make nutrient-dense snacks at home. And overall, just to cook, to eat mindfully and live sustainably. So just a very big overview of the nutrients we need to eat. I think we're all familiar with this, but I just want to reinforce a few things. One is, of course, carbohydrates. There are both complex, simple, but the ones we need to focus on are complex carbs, which are all in our whole grains, and on eating a higher quantity of fiber. Fiber is a very, very key, not only for all lifestyle diseases, diabetes, heart disease, and also gut health. The second point is protein. One thing I think a lot of nutritionists and doctors have observed that, especially in India, when we're largely vegetarian, we really do not get enough protein in our diets. We have large quantities of carbohydrates, maybe rice or chapatis, and small quantities of dal and other meats. So it's very important to make sure that we get enough protein. And to give you a guideline, for 1 kg of body weight, you need about 1 gram of protein to maintain your health. And that, so if you're 60 kilos, say 60 grams of protein, it's not difficult to get it, but you really need to make sure on a daily basis that you collect that protein. So for example, 1 egg will give you about 7 grams of protein. A cup of dahi, of yogurt, will give you about 7 or 8 grams. 100 grams of beans, rajma or chana will give you about 15 to 18 grams. Or 100 grams of chicken will give you about 30 grams. So it's not very difficult to get that protein, but just to make sure that we get enough protein and we get it from more plant sources rather than animal sources. Small quantities of lean animal protein is fine. With fats, The point I want to raise here is the fats to avoid completely are trans fats, which is hydrogenated vegetable oils or dalda vanaspati, which was very popular a long time ago. But we don't really use it so much in our daily cooking, but almost all commercial food still uses hydrogenated vegetable fat in their food. So that's the point to remember. And the good fats that we need to get from our food, namely omega-3 and 6 essential fatty acids, those are fats that we should consciously make an attempt to add to our diet. And those come from things like nuts and seeds, particularly. And of course, good fatty fish, like if you're a fish eater, mackerel and tuna and these small fish are very good. Vitamins and minerals, of course, are very, very important. And especially as we get older, it's very important to actually see what minerals and vitamins we may be deficient in through analyzing it through our blood and making sure we get those deficiencies. And water, salt, and probiotics, which are very important. Probiotics, of course, we have fortunately in our diets through idli, dosas, and a lot of the fermented food we have. So that said, our healthy eating plate, needs to look like this. And literally half in a day is where you should get your fruits and vegetables from. Almost half of what you eat should be somehow in the form of fruits and vegetables. Small quantity of whole grains, small quantity of proteins, good quality fats, and a small amount of dairy if you choose to. What I tell everyone is really we need to go back to our traditional diets. Whatever is local, whatever is traditional and whatever is seasonal. And especially in South India, I think we have a huge variety of very easily accessible, different types of red rices and heritage rice, all the kinds of millets, and lots of seasonal vegetables that we can access really. Even fruits, it's really so important to just eat whatever is local and seasonal. For example, I learned through my journey that guava has 5 times more vitamin C than orange. I didn't know that, but guava is an amazingly, and not only the vitamin C, but it's good in fiber. So rather than eating that oranges that come from New Zealand and Australia, it's much better to eat guava, and even better to have amla. So these are the choices to make. So good fruits, local fruits and vegetables, traditional grains, and first lots of water. 2 points I just want to raise because I'm an advocate of eating organic if you can access or afford to. I know a lot of people question as to, how do you know whether food is actually organic or not? It's very important to deal with organizations that are genuine. I get my organic produce from organizations that work directly with farmers. They source only from farmers. They're very particular about, bringing your oil bottles, glass bottles for recycling oil. So I know they're genuine. They've been around for a long time. So, you can find out the good organic sources and buy from them. But the reason to eat organic is mainly because, there is, and this affects our health. I mean, pesticides and contaminants in our food definitely affect our health. I mean, cancer, for example, has long-term been linked to, the use of pesticides and chemicals in our air and in our food. So there is no regulation of pesticides and fertilizers in India, really. We use about 99 banned pesticides. Lots of our food is sprayed with antibiotics. And when you buy organic, you get fresh food because they harvested organic food because is not sprayed, it does not last very long. So normally it's harvested and sent very quickly. And that process of organic food cultivation, which is a much harder process using, all natural ingredients, helps not only protect the water and the soil, it also protects our farmers. There is a horrible story of, the farmers from Punjab. There's actually a train that goes several times a week from Bathinda and Punjab to Bikaner. And the reason this train is full of cancer patients because there's a free cancer hospital started by the royal family Bikaner there. And these patients travel from Punjab to Bikaner for treatment. And the reason there are so many people is because of the Green Revolution, which helped our country, of course, become self-sufficient food grain, but at the cost, because of the high amounts of pesticides and fertilizers used in that agriculture, it has contaminated the soil and the water. So, eat organic is important for that. And it protects our long-term biodiversity. I mean, I'm very happy to see now that, there's so many groups going back to growing all the traditional rice varieties, the traditional. So by supporting these organic farmers, we are also protecting our biodiversity. But if you cannot access organic food, my recommendation.
I think, Sharma, we are losing you because
to wash them all.
You have a weak signal, I guess. Yeah, you can carry on.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So peel all the vegetables and fruit that can be peeled. Wash them well under running water. And if you can, especially the ones that cannot be peeled, you soak them for 30 minutes in either salt, vinegar, or a tamarind solution. The other thing that fruits are very often forced ripened, through either ethylene gas or calcium carbide. So you can wash those well before eating. So that's my recommendation. So that's what about eating good, what's good to eat, what food is good for you. Now I want to talk more about what food is not so good for you, and where we all know in general what is junk food. And the thing, I think only when you really understand or start reading labels will you actually make the changes. And I tell everybody, I think the single one thing you can do in starting the labels on processed food, if you have to just do one thing, and that will definitely have. So what is junk food? If it was interactive, I would ask you what you think, but in the essence of time, I'll define it for you. It's basically food that has little or no nutrition, so therefore we call it junk, and it's high in fat, high in salts, and high in sugar, and most often using refined flour or refined products.
Lacking preservative also counts?
Sorry?
Does preservatives also count?
Of course, absolutely. Absolutely. Preservatives and additives.
Additives, yes.
So, to just give you an example, mostly cheap commercial food is actually not healthy. And if you go to buy a packet of biscuits, a glucose biscuit, it's 10 rupees. If you try to make biscuits at home, it's definitely going to cost you more than 10 rupees. Yeah. So it's literally, you get what you pay for. So the cheap food, which unfortunately a lot of the poor in our country are living on because they cannot afford good quality food. I mean, that is the tragedy of our country today, is that the poor have to eat poor quality food because good quality food has become so expensive. But that is the thing. So it's, just that understanding of, if it's cheap, most often it's not good for you, unless it's in its whole unprocessed form. So I recommend, for all of us, like I used to do with my kids, everything in moderation. We have, sometime food, which is the junk food that you can eat once in a while, and then anytime food, which is, fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and things like that. So in the context of talking about each of these aspects of food that is high in fat, salt, sugar, I'll just give you a few guidelines that I like to emphasize. See, and this, when you understand and you kind of internalize these guidelines, it's really a very, very helpful tool for healthy eating. So sugar, the WHO and our own Indian National Institute for Nutrition recommend 6 teaspoons of sugar of added sugar on a daily basis. That's about 25 grams. And when I talk about sugar, I'm going to just show you here visually. It's not any teaspoon. So these are like standard measuring spoons. You can see it. And this one here is a single teaspoon. So I actually keep 5 grams. This is equivalent to about 5 grams. I keep that teaspoon in my sugar container. So I know when I'm putting 1 teaspoon of sugar, it's 5 grams and not more. So it's very important. Even for measuring fat, I use a standard tablespoon. So that's another change that you can, make. So fat, you're advised 2 to 4 tablespoons or 30 to 60 grams of visible fat per day. That's the fat you can cook with, and that you can see. So oil, ghee, butter, various things like that. With sodium or salt, it's 1 teaspoon of sodium a day, or ranges between 1500 to 2300 milligram. And we're asked to have at least 25 to 30 grams of fiber. As I know that, refined flour and white rice have been stripped of all the fiber. So that's why they're not, good for us. So I'm going to visually take you through foods that are high in all these ingredients that I've talked about. And then we'll get into, some of the details. So some things actually which you think are savory also have sugar. So in this slide, tomato ketchup, every tablespoon of tomato ketchup has 1 teaspoon of sugar in it. A Knorr soup packet, which is for us salty, has about 2 teaspoons of sugar in it. So sugar is actually hidden in different forms in all our foods. It is, quite frightening actually. So because our palates have gotten used to, that kind of sugar in everything. So even savory food, they add sugar too. These are our much loved mithai and cakes and chocolates. These are not only high in sugar, they're also high in fat. These foods are high in bad fats. So when you look at these things, almost all of these foods have been made either by using, maida and oil, or vanaspati or dalda. The puffs, for example, all our bakery products, the puffs and the cakes that we buy commercially, which are cheap, 10 rupees, 15 rupees, 20 rupees, almost all of those use hydrogenated vegetable fat. And the reason they use it is because butter is so expensive. So hydrogenated vegetable fat, which is solid at room temperature, basically becomes a substitute for butter or ghee. And it stays stable. It doesn't get spoiled easily. So as a result, food that's prepared with hydrogenated vegetable fat stays long on the shelf. So all of our commercial products are made with these things. Similarly, when things are refried many times, the oil naturally becomes hydrogenated, and it's not good for us. High in salt and fat, because a lot of these are again pretty obvious. But I want to point out specifically here Amul cheese slices. Now, when you hear, we of course, they're very, very popular. People use them in sandwiches, for burgers, cheese toast, all kinds of things. When they advertise, they say 1 glass of milk in every slice. And that is probably true. But my thing to you is that if you want to have a glass of milk, much better have the glass of milk by itself. Because what Amul cheese slice, or not Amul, whatever brand, Britannia or anything there are, if you read the label on this, you will learn that it's mainly fat and salt with some food coloring. That is essentially, it's a highly processed product that is very salty and high in fat. So there's the nutrition that a glass of milk would give you without the salt and fat is basically, negated through the salt and fat that you're getting. So yes, I also use Amul cheese slices once in a while if I'm making a burger and I want to get that flavor. I may use half a slice rather than the whole slice. But the thing to do is to be aware that that's what's in the product. High in preservatives, lots of products. Everything that's almost sitting on our shelves in a grocery store has some form of preservative in it, and additives, because that's the only way it can stay for a long time. As they say, the food that's best for you is the food that rots easily. So, which is our fruits and vegetables mostly. So, but all fat is not bad fat. Fat should be, our brain is fat. Our brain is 60% fat. So good fats are very important for you. In fact, what had happened was, the whole, about 10, 20 years ago, everyone said, oh, fat was very bad for you. Eggs are bad. They cause cholesterol, etc. And there was a huge international lobby, actually, which was the sugar lobby, that push this narrative. And by cutting, so companies reduce the fat content of the food, but they increase the sugar. And as a result, the world has this huge obesity and health epidemic that is caused basically by reducing the fat in our food and substituting that with sugar for the taste. So, good quality fats should definitely be part of our diet, but of course sparingly. And what I advocate and I use in my own kitchen is I use traditionally filtered cold pressed oils and ghee. All the refined oils we get, unfortunately, are also processed in a way that they are actually almost close to hydrogenated fats. They're really devoid of all nutrition. They never go bad. When I was growing up, you could actually smell the oils, the groundnut oil, you could smell sometimes them getting rancid. That doesn't happen with our refined oils, the commercial oils we buy. And that's because it has been treated to such a high extent with chemicals and processes to reduce not only the ability of going bad, but also the nutrition. So again, better to buy small quantities of cold processed oils and use different oils based on the cuisine. I have, mustard oil, gingerly oil, coconut oil, olive oil, peanut oil, sunflower oil, all oils in my kitchen. And based on what I'm cooking, I use those oils for cooking. Coming to salt, this is a findings from the Center for Science and Environment. Now I talked about how much salt per day. So if you look at your recommended daily allowance of 5.5 grams per snack maybe, or 1.25 meals a day, one packet of Haldiram's masala nuts of 100 grams, which we can all quite easily eat, has 5 grams of salt. So that's your salt quota gone for the day. Similarly, a KFC Zinger box, fast food, has 60 grams of fat plus salts and trans fats. One Maharaja Mac, a single serving Domino pizza or chicken seekh kebab can basically has enough salt for our all day. The other point I want to remember is, these are foods that we know of or we could get the information on. A lot of the foods I've just mentioned, they have labels, but there's lots of foods available in our local shops, in our bakeries, in our sweet shops, in the restaurants that we do not have labels for. So that can also be, I'm not saying only read the labels. Please be conscious of the food that you're eating that does not have labels, because that can be as or more dangerous for you. In this time, we all are it's so easy to order food right now. I mean, you sit at home and in Swiggy and 2-3 push buttons, we are able to, order a meal rather than make it at home. And that's fine. Once in a while, absolutely fine. We all need a break from daily cooking and chores. But again, be conscious. The big one, which is, I think we all know sugar it's literally empty calories. We don't need added sugar in our lives at all. We get enough of it if we have natural food. And it is addictive. And sugar, as I said, is added to everywhere. And there are about 56 names for sugar. Not only besides sucrose, fructose, galactose, lactose, which are the natural sugars, they are, dextrose, maltose, high fructose, corn syrup, invert sugar, fruit concentrate. There's literally a list of 56 different types of sugars. And besides spiking your blood sugar levels, fructose particularly goes straight, is metabolized in the liver. And that's one of the things, that has caused a lot of not only diabetes, but fatty liver disease related to consumption of fructose, which is from the cold drinks, because most of the cold drinks, ready-made cold drinks, use a high fructose corn syrup. And similarly, also in our fruit drinks, which I will talk about in a little bit. The other point I want to tell you about sugar is that even brown sugar, so very often in restaurants and hotels, they give you brown sugar and you think you're eating something that's better, healthier. But that's not true at all. Brown sugar is actually just white sugar to which some molasses has been added to it. It's a trick. It is the same value as white sugar. Similarly, jaggery is a little better for you because it has iron and some nutrients in it. But jaggery, honey, etc. are all sugars in different forms. And none of them are good for you in large quantities, especially if you have a health condition. Sugar substitutes also are not considered safe. So that brings me to the kind of the bulk or the most important part of what I want you to leave you with this today is how to read for labels. But before that, I just want to share with you how much sugar is in our cold drinks. And because I think that's really one of the biggest, especially for kids and maybe even, for young adults and as we get older, none of us are really aware. I've had so many people after I do my talk saying, oh my God, I had no clue that there was this much sugar in this bottle of Sprite or whatever. So I hope you can look at my screen and see the amount of sugar in 100 grams. So if you look at the first column, there's a Coke, Pepsi. We're looking at 11 grams per 100 ml. And normally in a 300 gram can, you need to multiply that. So it's 33 grams. And if you have a big 600 ml, it's 66 grams. So when you're comparing it to the guideline, for sugar, which was for normal consumption, which is 25 grams, you can see that even one can of Coke or any of these cold drinks will basically put you over your limit for the day. And I have teenage kids who are like, oh, they could have 1 or 2 or 3 of those Cavan milkshakes. And when I started to read the labels, I was like, oh my God, there's 23 grams of sugar in each of those tiny little 200 ml packs, So much better to just make a milkshake at home or just have plain milk. Just to give you an idea, this is I don't even have any ready-made cold drinks at home right now, but this is a soda bottle, which is about 600 ml. And I'm comparing this to a bottle of Sprite. And I'm going to just to show you, this bottle of Sprite has 72 grams, almost 70 to 72 grams of sugar in it. And this is how much 72 grams is. I mean, it is absolutely astounding. It doesn't taste sweet, but that's essentially the sugar equivalent in a 600 ml bottle of Sprite. And this is 23 grams. So if you're looking at how much of sugar you're supposed to have in a day, this is 23 to say 25 grams. So this is one area where, please spread the word as much as you can of how important it is to get off the sugary cold drinks and to either switch to water or to just make your drinks at home. So how do we do that? Let's learn how to read the labels. Okay, so there's the first step. What is a food label? It's really the story of the product and what it does to you, in the back and the front of the label. And of course, before I say that, we're talking about processed food. All food is processed in some way or the other. What I'm talking about is highly processed food. I mean, even, oil seeds have to be processed to get into oil. Wheat has to be processed to be ground to make atta. So there are different processes. But when I'm talking about processed food, I'm really talking about highly processed food. So the first thing to read is the ingredient list. And normally, food is listed. The ingredients are listed in order of quantity. So the more quantity of ingredient in that food item, that's normally first, and then in descending order basically. So the first few ingredients will really give you an idea of what the product is about. So shorter chemical names or their numbers, which are normally preservatives in addition. So look and see whether they're natural versus artificial ingredients. And the second thing to do is to look at the nutrition label, which gives you the carbohydrates. It gives you the carbohydrates and total sugars. It gives you the fat. It gives you the sodium. Sometimes based on it, it'll give you the protein content, fiber. A lot of vitamins and minerals are actually added to very highly processed food. And in the advertising, they try to convince you that this food is very good for you because they add minerals and vitamins to it. Of course, it's much better to get those vitamins and minerals from natural food, of course. The other thing to watch out for is what I call serving size versus pack size. So on the label, they will say serving size, and I'll give you an example in the next label. And that serving size will be, say, about, say 30 grams, but the pack size is 100 grams. So they will give you the nutritional information normally for, say, 100 grams. And you have to decide whether you're going to eat the whole 100 grams or you're going to divide into 3 30-gram serving. So it's very important to look at that ratio and to actually do it. It involves math. I always say teach your kids to do math while reading labels, because you're either having to multiply or you have to divide to understand what is in that label. And food companies make it very hard. They put the labels in small print so that you can barely read it, and they really make it hard because they don't really want you to know what is in your food. So the other things to watch out for, as I said, is misleading claims. For example, even in a digestive biscuit, it'll say high fiber digestive biscuit. The moment you read the label, the first item on a digestive biscuit is maida, which is not high fiber. But so it's very important to keep that in mind. Brown bread is brown because they're adding caramel to it. It's not because it's whole wheat. So there's a lot of false information being given out for marketing. So let's look at this few labels now as a sample from different. This is a Kellogg's, a wheat flake. It's a very simple label, mainly whole wheat, bran, sugar, iodized salt, cereal extract, which is a sugar, and what they call mineral and antioxidant, that INS 307B, is actually added basically to prevent it's like a sunflower seed oil or a thing, which is added to prevent the flakes from becoming rancid. So it's not necessarily something that, it's making it sound like it's good for you, but it's basically something to help help it stay fresh. And here is a typical way that they say the typical value for 40 grams. The information is given for 40 grams, which they consider a single serving. I measured 40 grams, and 40 grams is now I know is 1 cup. So that's what you need to do. If you're continuously, consuming a certain product, just work that out for yourselves and see how much you need to consume, and then you will know the nutrition levels for it. Second example that I want to highlight for you, I'll just highlight the Cavin's milkshake, as I've already shared, has added sugar of 11.7 grams. So in every 200 ml, there's almost 23 grams of sugar. But more important is Tropicana 100%. Now, my mother is diabetic, and she always thought that Tropicana 100% has no added sugar, so she can have it as a diabetic. But that is not true at all. In fact, if the label says that, rich source of vitamin C, no added sugar, no added color, no added preservatives, that is all true. But the sugar in a Tropicana orange juice is natural sugar, which is fructose, and that is 20 grams. So in your body, it's doing the same thing to you as having 4 teaspoons of sugar. And in fact, fruit juices, as I said, because they're fructose, they really go straight into your liver where they're metabolized and cause problems there. So it's much better to have the whole fruit rather than fruit juices. And definitely do not think that Tropicana orange juice, just because it's 100%. The way it's made, actually, these juices their oranges are extracted when they are fresh. They are vacuum sealed to prevent any spoilage. And then when they're being bottled, a flavor pack is added to the Tropicana so that they all taste the same. Obviously, we know every batch of oranges will taste different, right? So they add a flavor pack to the orange juice to standardize the taste. They add vitamins and minerals. So that's the way these are made commercially. So again, it's, fine once in a while, but just be aware of what you're consuming. Similarly, digestive biscuits. Again, taking my mother, who's diabetic, as an example, her nutritionist many years ago told her, yes, absolutely fine to have digestive biscuits as a snack. So every day she would have 2. When I told her, I said, look at the label. It's refined wheat flour. The second ingredient is 20% of atta. The third ingredient is hydrogenated vegetable fat. And the fourth ingredient is sugar. So I said, how is this good for a diabetic? There's no way. And there's, again, so many different types of sugars. Look at it, wheat bran, there's liquid glucose, which is sugar, milk solids, which is sweet, maltodextrin, which is sugar, malt extract, which is sugar. So essentially, a cheap snack option, but not good for you. Oreo cookies, which my children used to love, is even worse because it not only has the sugars of 38.6 grams in 100, but it has 19.5 grams of fat. And so many, the filling and all that is all just artificial ingredients. Muesli. So we often think, especially as adults, like muesli is a great option to have with fruit and fiber and nuts and all kinds of things. But again, I've highlighted this label, which advertises 40% oats, which may be true, real fruit, high fiber, goodness of nuts, multigrain. Now look at the label. This label has sugar in about 10 different ways. Besides the rolled oats and whole wheat flakes, which have sugar, and malt extract, which is sugar, there's strawberry crush, which is sugar. There is apple juice concentrate, which is sugar, pineapple crush, which is sugar, only 2% of almonds. So the goodness of nuts is just 2% of almonds, invert syrup, which is sugar. So beetroot powder, which is sugar. In my cookbook, I have a muesli recipe that is loaded with nuts, seeds, ingredients, none of these artificial things, jaggery, a little bit of honey if you want. Make it yourself. It's really not difficult. You just have to be a little organized, cut and chop, bake it or roast it on your stove, and you have a customized muesli of ingredients that you like and which are all good for you. So again, if you're buying a product, please read the labels and buy something that is the right for you. Both Horlicks and Ensure, which is recommended for a lot of old people, is just carbohydrates, milk, and combination of sugars. Granola bars, that's one of the recipes that I use most. A lot of people use from my book. Again, we feel that, okay, a healthy snack will be a commercial granola bar. Read the label. This has oats, but it has sugar, oil, honey, soy lectin, brown sugar syrup. Again, just a combination of sugar and sugar, because it's carbs and sugar and fat. Really not giving you a lot of nutrition. I find that our local groundnut sweets actually quite a good energy snack. But again, the problem there is many of them use liquid glucose. So again, the advice there is, either look for ingredients that don't have products that use jaggery only, if you are allowed to have jaggery in sweets, or make it yourself at home, or use dates, or use a mixture of nuts and natural sugars. Aloo bhujia, the reason I'm highlighting this is because 100 grams of aloo bhujia has 42 grams of fat in it. It tastes wonderful, but not only the fat, but a very high amount of salt, which is 610 grams of sodium. And as usual, we won't look at reading the labels, but this is what it's potato. And the second ingredient is refined palmolene oil. Maggi noodles is one of our favorites. Everybody loves them. They're so tasty. But in every pack of Maggi noodles has almost 862 mg of sodium. So if you look at ranges of 1200, 1500 grams of sodium, mg of sodium a day, with one Maggi noodle packet, you've almost close to reached your quota for the day, beside a long list of preservatives and fats. Maggi noodles or any of these instant noodles are fried first. They are refined carbs that are deep fried and then packed. So double whammy. Salad dressing is actually so easy to make at home. It literally, if you have ingredients handy, you just put it together in a bottle, shake it, and you have it. But the reason, if you look at this ingredient of salad dressing, it literally, you just glance at it and it mostly is numbers and oil, synthetic vinegar. None of it is good for you. So again, either
Sharmila, you there? Seems to have missed you. Is the connection?
No, the connection looks...
Yeah, you're back. Yes, please.
Okay. What did you miss?
After this, probably, yeah. You're in the middle of telling about the salad dressings, yeah.
Yeah. So as I said, the dressings are literally all preservatives largely. So, make your dressings at home. I have an Instagram page called Sharmila Cooks for Kids, where I give recipes for salads, salad dressings, soups, and different things that you can make at home. So you can follow me. I've already talked about this, about being conscious of advertising. Samosa versus digestive biscuits. Various kinds of options. A samosa made at home once in a while would be absolutely fine to have. Fill it with good vegetables and make it at home, and it's much better for you than having a whole packet of biscuits. So while all of you might be hating me at the end of learning about what all is in your favorite food, and it says, okay, my God, so what do? We can't buy anything, everything is bad for you. I'm here to tell you that it's not that difficult. The main thing to do is everything is easier if you plan and prep for it. And as for me, as a working mom with 3 kids and running a family, I used to make a meal plan every week. And I think a meal plan is something you don't have to do if you have a big family. You can do it even if you're one person. And the thing that planning helps is it really helps with healthy eating. Because as we said, we are advised to eat a range of vegetables and fruit. We are advised to eat a range of dals and beans, a range of whole grains. So when you plan, say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm going to eat these different, so you can really get the whole healthy gamut of, different colored fruits and vegetables. You can make sure you have orange and green and white and purple in your fruits and vegetables. You can have red rice one day, oats another day, millets the third day. So just that simple act of it takes literally 10-15 minutes once you're used to it, and on a weekend, plan for the week. Then you shop accordingly, or basically look at your pantry and say, what do I have that I can use for the week ahead? That's a tool that will really, really help you. The other thing is prep. So when on the weekends you have time, I prep and I put everything in my freezer. In fact, in my book, I have a whole section on how to use your freezer, what you can freeze, how to defrost, because that's one of the myths actually of our, in India particularly, that, only fresh food, hot and fresh food is good for you. Actually, freezing particularly reduces the degradation and the bacteria formation on food. So it's much better than even keeping it in your fridge, and definitely than keeping it out. So, I make hummus, for example, every week. I freeze one batch, half of it I freeze and I keep it in the fridge, and half of it half I freeze, half I keep in the fridge. Anytime anyone's hungry, it's a great snack to eat with vegetables or crackers or, on a slice of bread. It's the equivalent to me for butter or mayonnaise. So similarly, a lot of the chatpata chaats, chutneys, tomato sauces, everything you can freeze and make ahead. I also bake a lot of treats, and that's the other thing I do. So once a week on the weekend, I will bake. So I bake some healthy cookies, a banana bread, make some energy balls, a granola bar. So I have a very sweet tooth, unfortunately. It's a big challenge to deal with, eating less sugar. But through making your own and making tasty, healthy food at home, you can really deal with it. So to get into the conclusion of my talk is, make every meal count. So when you're plan for protein and vegetables in every meal. Add fruit, soup, and salad to your daily diet. And again, that requires some planning. Like we have salad every day. We cut and chop it and keep it, in separate containers, for a day or two at a time. So it's very easy to just throw it together. Add nuts and seeds to, your porridges, your salads, anything you're having. Stock on nutritious snacks. Make your treats at home. And just examples of things from my cookbook. Every time I make a tikki or a cutlet, is a combination of protein and a whole grain. Everything. Every time I plan a meal, it should have a combination of vegetable, protein, good carbs. Similarly, ideas for nutritious snacks. The recipes, of course, all of these are in my book. Snacks is really hard. I think you really have to stop buying commercial snacks and keep snacks at home. And I've learned that you can even roast, for example, just by roasting nuts, they become so tasty. It's a great snack.
Yeah, Sharmila, I would just like to, make a
Yeah,
little bit of connotation because we are receiving questions. So I would like to just add them accordingly. So there is a
yeah,
question which talks about after looking at your label and
yeah,
not having much of to eat,
yeah.
one of the attendees have said that we cannot give anything to the kids. We are feeling guilty now. So I think probably you can make some point over there.
Yeah, absolutely. So example, like this chart actually has, it is
Yeah.
difficult. Snacks, like I make my own mixture, for example. So if you roast, what I do with this, again, I have the recipes are there. You roast, roast nuts, roast seeds, roast your poha, add some spices to it. If you can afford it, add cashew nuts and things like that. And it's actually very tasty and healthy, puffed rice or flat rice. I mean, it requires effort. I cannot say that it is as easy as buying a mixture. 100% no. But if you're interested in long-term good health for you and your family, that is really the only way about. Either don't snack or get into the habit of not snacking. But in the evening, a handful of, roast, like I've started making recently because we have a sweet tooth. So I roasted almonds and I got good quality chocolate and dipped them in and keep that as a dessert. I mean, I only need one or two of those almonds coated in a little dark chocolate to satisfy me or my kids. And, it's a very healthy way to eat a sweet rather than buying a mithai or buying, candy or something like that. Yeah. So you have to plan for healthy snacking. There's no way about it. I mean, for example, chaat, bhel puri, puffed rice, or pani puri or something. Of course, the puris are not that healthy, but for kids, it's okay. But I keep all the chutneys year round in my freezer. So anybody wants a little heavy snack, I quickly can make up a, chatpatat snack for them. As I said, peanut butter, for example, if your kids like peanut butter and banana. I used to spread peanut butter on a banana for my kids or give them apple with peanut butter. They ended up eating it. You have to give them tasty, healthy options. Like the granola bar that I make in my book. I mean, whenever my kids are running off for a sport, or even for me, when I'm going off, rushing out for meetings, I always keep one in my purse. One of those will fill me up for a couple of hours. And what has it had? It's got oats, nuts, seeds, dried fruit, So there are options. It's not so easy, but it's not that difficult either if you plan for it. Similarly with sweets, these are different options of laddus. Sesame is a great, lots of source of calcium. Again, nuts, seeds, and whole grains. If you can work yourself around these three ingredients, and reduce the sugar. So when you're baking, also, you should know how much you're baking in, because even if you bake yourself at home, but you're using a whole lot of butter and a whole lot of sugar, I mean, it's not doing you any good. So you can actually work to make healthier treats. So I have about 5-6 muffin recipes, for example, in my book. They're all made with whole wheat, all made with fruit. And as a result, you reduce the sugar. So the sugar is 1 cup, quarter cup, 1/3 cup, that kind of thing, versus 1 cup, which you normally get in a recipe.
So I would. Okay,
sorry.
Fine. You can go with the solution. I mean, I'll take the questions later. Yeah.
So finally, just to sum up, is it's happiness is homemade to me. You really, junk food, as I say, people say, oh, isn't it okay for kids to eat junk food? I said, no, it is not good at any age. And honestly, food habits are learned. We really need to instill in our kids healthy eating habits from a young age. Find the middle ground. Like, so I have personally not given up, maida completely, but almost everything I do is half and half. So even if I make idlis and dosas, I use half red rice and half, boiled idli rice. I use different types of millets. I use different types of whole grains. So, just find that middle ground that works for your family and get involved with food. The moment you start growing even herbs or anything in your pots, in your balcony and all, it changes the way you look at food. The freshness, you can grow vegetables literally in any little space, and herbs. And one point I want to mention is that home cooking is not only good for our health, but it's good for the planet, because there are layers of packaging. Every single packet of biscuits or food bottle that we buy is plastic. It's disposable. It does not. It's not biodegradable. So by making, for example, I made my own peanut butter for the last 10 years. I mean, I've saved, hundreds of bottles of peanut butter just by recycling one glass bottle. So think about that also when you look at cooking. And to end, because this is a group concerned with healthy eating, I just want to share lessons from the blue zone. These are places that have the largest amount of people living to 100. The largest amount of centenarians in these 5 countries and places in the world. And they're in Greece, in Japan, in Italy, in the US, California, and Costa Rica. And these are the things that the researchers who are researching is how come people are all living to such an old age and in good quality of life. This is what they learned. One is that they moved naturally. They all had a sense of purpose. They all found ways to reduce stress. They ate wisely. They ate only 80%. They stopped eating in the late evening. They surrounded themselves with, a few good friends. Most of them had a good faith, and they kept their family close to them. The food habits of these people, when they analyzed it across the groups, these are the learnings, and I want to leave you with some of those things, which are, again, very common sense, is a plant slant. 95% of what they ate was from their plant sources. They ate very small portions, like a fistful size of animal protein, maybe 3 times a week. They ate fish often, eggs, maybe up to three eggs a week. Every day they had beans. So this is one of the things to make consciously we can add to our diet, either in the form of dals or soups or sundal or any way, but a daily dose of beans. They slashed sugar, they snacked on nuts, and they drank water, coffee, and herbal tea. And they ate some superfoods daily, greens, sweet potatoes, olive oil, herbal tea. And I think for us, India is full of superfoods. We really don't have to look anywhere else to buy chia seeds and to buy quinoa and all these things which are, come as fads internationally. We have enough of superfoods. And I recently did some courses on Ayurveda to understand, what Ayurveda recommends for different healthy eating. And I think, of course, you have a clinic and doctors with you who can recommend you. But the things that I took away from what I learned, and I just want to share that with you at the end, is things like barley and red rice. Those are good whole grains. Moong dal. So Ayurveda, in fact, when you, when you read right now about what is good for you, they all talk about the gut, the brain-gut connect, how the gut health is so important. And Ayurveda, of course, thousands of years ago said, you are not only what you eat, you are what you digest. So the foods that are recommended are all actually good for you, good for your health. So things like moong dals, all the various gourds. Now, as of my family, from my background, we didn't eat any of the gourds at all. But now I eat them regularly and I make them into soup. So if the kids do not want to have, bottle gourd or ash gourd, I convert it into soup. I add celery, I add an onion, I add garlic, make it tasty. And so just think of ways to have these ingredients in, interesting ways. And amla every day is one of the best things you can do. And amla has 25 times more vitamin C than oranges. Yeah. So nuts, drink hot water, different kinds of seeds that we have locally, and spices, of course, the turmeric, pepper, and ghee, which again got a very bad rap for a long time because of cholesterol. But a small ghee in small quantities not only tastes great, but it's also good for you. So on that note, I think I will end. Thank you for listening. And my book for whoever's interested is available on my own website as well as on Amazon. And you can also follow me for regularly, recipes for healthy eating and nutrition tips.
Thank you. A big thank you for the entire team here at RxDX, to all the attending participants. Sharmila, thank you so much for sharing your experience and expertise. I know, for one, I found this discussion extremely insightful, and with your permission, probably would definitely like to incorporate some of these principles in our own practices. So, Confucius once said that what I hear, I forget, what I see, I remember, and what I do, I understand. So I hope all our participants today have benefited as much as I have, and can take some kind of a step in making themselves more healthier and incorporate these small learnings into their lives, such that by doing some sort of changes, what we are actually looking at, these changes are basically the gems of advisors which we can actually make our life better. So before winding it up, is there anything you would like to add, Sharmila, to this talk show?
No, just thank you for the opportunity. I want to apologize for the glitches of my screen and the internet, and to just say to people, as you know, initially when you kind of hear or this, it may seem alarming, but it's please do not be alarmed. Just make small steps. And it's just a step-by-step approach to a long-term goal of healthier eating. So do not get alarmed or stressed out by what you've learned. Just start to bring the awareness to your daily life, and I'm sure that changes will happen. As I said, find everything in moderation. Don't not eat anything you want. I mean, food is a great source of relieving stress, of joy, of pleasure in our lives. So make the journey fun and as well as healthy.
Yeah.
So
thank you very much, Sharmila, for this. Thank you everyone for participating. And I hope everyone have a restful evening and an enjoyable weekend ahead. Till then, take care of yourself. Thank you very much.